Nudity. Mm. Hello, I'm George from Ireland. Thank you for coming back to my channel. And this video is stating the truthful tidings that Olivia Hussey has died. Olivia Hussey, who's best known for playing the title role in Romeo and Juliet, that celebrated 1968 iteration of Shakespeare's classic about the star-crossed lovers, was directed by the Italian Franco Zeffirelli. So she's died at the age of 73. You'd think someone who led a very healthy lifestyle. So it's very sad. A multi-talented actress who gave pleasure to many millions of people with her winsome portrayals of all sorts of well-known fictional characters and indeed real characters. So she's born in Buenos Aires to an Argentine father and a British mother. Her actual surname was actually Osuna, but later on, her parents split. She returned to the United Kingdom with her mother, and then she decided to go by her mother's maiden name, Hussey. Now, theatre is a bitchy world, and there were people who said that she was Hussey by name and Hussey by nature. No doubt some people were covetous of her success, and what a stellar beginning she had, being an absolute supernova child star in Romeo and Juliet, about which more later. Um, so then she grew up in London from an early age. She was brought up a Catholic, but seemed to drift away from the faith later on. She went to the Italia Conti stage school in London, and did a bit of modeling, did some part-time acting, and so on. And age 13, she's acting professionally. Child protection didn't exist back then, although in those days I think you couldn't legally work full-time at the age of 15. These things were very laxly enforced, could get away with it. And so these teenagers could be on set, and no one looking out for their welfare, and that's when predatory behavior, the likes of Jimmy Savile, came around. So far as I know, he never had anything to do with her. I'm not aware that he ever even met her, and I'm not saying anything like that happened to her, but it happened to other people, because, as I say, there was great laxity about a child's welfare in the theatre world, and I don't suspect that most actors or directors or anything like that ever did anything untoward, but unfortunately a few did. So she's already winning awards by her mid-teens. Um, but yeah, 1968, Zeffirelli is making this film. I think actually shot it in 67, released the next year. She was 15 when she began to play the role, and opposite Leonard Whiting. So in Romeo and Juliet, Shakespeare says that she's 13. Now it never states Romeo's age, but impliedly he's not much older. So Zeffirelli wanted an actor and actress to be as close to the real age as possible. So he didn't cast a 13 or 15, 13 or a 15-year-old and a boy who was 16. I think he turned 17 during production. So quite close in age to the other, as to each other. As you may remember, in the story, Juliet is then affianced by her parents to marry Count Paris, who's considerably older than her, and they just want her to marry him, not because she loves him or even likes him, but simply because he's politically well connected and an aristocrat. So they want that social status, and they're from a well-established family in Verona as well. Um, so it's marvelously well portrayed. She's quite a convincing actress. Zeffirelli decided to make the most of the gifts of Leonard Whiting. I think it's pronounced Whiting, not Whiting, and indeed Olivia Hussey, by doing things that were quite emotional, surprising them, so on, and cutting some of the soliloquies. Some of the speeches were over lengthy. They was just sort of stylized declamation, so didn't want anything too stilted. Want rawness, and so their natural abilities come through. But what was so contentious about it were the nude scenes. So she knew about this when she went to the casting. Obviously, it would not be entertained today. And briefly, her boobs were shown, and Leonard Whiting's bottom was shown, because they get married, they get into bed with each other, they don't see anything, but they wake up next morning. So the audience is given to understand they've consummated the marriage. And I remember watching it at school when I was about 11, and it was used to teach generations of children the Romeo and Juliet story. It wasn't seen as remotely contentious at the time. Remember, it was the swinging 60s, and people were saying, oh, don't be so square, rules don't matter, these age limits don't matter. And there's no way it will be allowed today. And I believe in more recent editions of film, those scenes have been cut. There's only a few seconds needs to be cut. But At the time, she said no, she was happy about it. I even seen an interview with her when she was 15 saying, "Well, we just had such a family atmosphere, I kind of forgot I was nude at the time, and it didn't really matter in the end." And even a few years ago, she and Leonard Whiting said they were happy with it and proud of their work. But then they changed their mind. They took out a lawsuit in California demanding hundreds of millions of dollars, and I really mean that much is ludicrous, saying that their child welfare was impaired, and this caused them trauma in later life. Anyway, the judge threw the case out, so they'd ratified it subsequently by their public statements, and that's what made her career. Girl on a Balcony is her uh, uh, autobiography's title, and it's a truly beautiful film. It's very well shot. They shot it in Italy, not all in Verona. Various scenes. It's just very well composed. Um, it's got pace without being too fast, and the actors are quite credible. It could easily be overdone, melodramatic, but no, it comes across as a real, even though obviously the 17th century diction for the 20th century was scarcely comprehensible. But the emotions are there, and there's a universality to that, and there's a timelessness to these emotions. So it is the classic love story of all time, and the way it's young love, first love, makes it all the more appealing. And she had a good relationship with Leonard Whiting. I mean, he was never her boyfriend, but they remained in touch for the rest of their lives. So what a fantastic way to be launched in world cinema. But she could never quite equal that. Because she was never offered roles that are going to be on the same level. There were big roles, okay, and but she played against type when playing Mary, the Virgin Mary, in the 1977 television production of Jesus of Nazareth, also directed by Zeffirelli. Michael York, he played, was it John the Baptist, and Robert Bolton, was that his name? That guy who plays Jesus Christ, and so on. So she's in all sorts of shows, but none of them quite as famous as that. Little bits in Psycho. She played Mother Teresa of Calcutta, and so on. But she said fame was just a bit too much at 15, being shot to superstar status. And then she visited Argentina in the late 70s under the military junta, just after Jesus of Nazareth had come out. This was a fervently Catholic country, and of course she was lionized by the crowds because she'd played Our Lady, and there was such a cult of Mariolatry there at the time. So she married, she had children, and that was it. But unfortunately she'd had a breast cancer twice. I'm not sure if it was the breast cancer came back and killed her. She was in death in the Nile and things like that. So really, very few people had a bad word to say about her. But no doubt there was a bit of envy because of that phenomenal start she got, and played it, as her age, but at the same time with a rare maturity. And it was actually quite credible, very moving in places. And then, for example, when she really doesn't want to get married to Paris and trying to get out of it, and the nurse, as in being her nanny, has realizes this is unavoidable. The only sensible thing to do if you can't achieve situational change is to achieve attitudinal change and say, "Hey, look at the bright side. You're marrying Paris. Is wonderful, not bad looking, very rich guy. You're a lucky girl. It could be a lot worse. So just choose to be happy if you're marrying Paris." Because she realizes there's nothing she can get out of it, but that doesn't work with her, and the misery she's in is so touching, so affecting, and it seems completely genuine. The emotions on her face and the tone of her voice and so on. So wow, it almost brings a film of moisture to my eyes watching some of those scenes. That is her, Olivia Hussey. Very sad that the world has lost her at not such a great age. Right, thank you for watching my video. Make sure you subscribe on Patreon and in PayPal, georgecallahan79@gmail.com. Moreover, I warmly recommend watching Franco Zeffirelli's Romeo and Juliet. To my mind, that is the edition of Romeo and Juliet. The 1997 edition is not bad, a modern dress version set in California. There obviously been numerous other iterations of it, but I think this is the all-conquering classic, the Zeffirelli 1968 release. Okay, goodbye everyone.